Midna awoke in a foggy white area. A place that looked vaguely like a hazy version of Hyrule Castle loomed in the background.
Where am I?
Her hand began to glow. It resonated with the silver tear that was hanging around her neck.
Damn it, she really did it.
Midna sat down on a nearby rock. She was too exhausted to do anything, and too emotionally shaken up to think straight. She had lost too many people in too short a time. First it was Aura, and then Link, and now Zelda. Link was then in a foggy place that resembled the area his mind usually traveled to when he was being trained by the hero spirit. A silvery shadow of a castle in the distance, the hazy whiteness of everything. It was just so ethereal. It was so beautiful, yet so haunting all at the same time. Link closed his eyes and breathed in deeply. He remembered this place all too well. He turned around, half expecting to meet the skeletal soldier once more, but in his place was Midna, sitting quietly upon a rock. Link's heart skipped a beat as he walked over to her.
I can't believe it. You're really her. Have I truly been able to find her again?
He couldn't stand the suspense any longer. He soon began to push himself into a fast-paced walk, and then took to running.
Midna!
Midna looked up at him.
Link? Where are we? I don't know how happy I am to see you. Ilya said you were dead. I thought you had died.
She got up and ran into his arms, tears of happiness streaming down her face and into Link's tunic. She held him tightly, like he was the only thing in the world, the only thing that mattered to her. She traced one of her delicate hands up his back and into the base of his neck, where his partially unkempt golden hair tickled her fingers. She twirled them through his hair lovingly, and then tighter. She couldn't let go. If he were to disappear, she would have died.
We're in some kind of place I used to go in order to train. I don't really know exactly where it is, though.
Link could feel her tears down his back and her fingers in his hair, and he wrapped his arms even tighter around Midna. He inhaled deeply, cherishing the soft scent that he so often associated with the twilight. He needed to tell her, but he didn't want to make her hurt even more than she already was. A few more moments he waited, and then he whispered her name into her ear.
Midna?
Link? What is it?
Illy was right, you know.
You mean you really are dead?
Yes, I think I am dead. That's what I don't understand. But, Midna, please don't cry. I don't want to see you like this.
But it's really you, here on my arms right now. This isn't my imagination.
Midna, can I ask you something?
Midna partially pulled out from Link's arms, just enough so she could look into his face. It was then that she realized she was a little bit taller than him. That was a little bit startling.
What is it?
What did you really mean to say to me when you broke the mirror?
Oh, you still remember that, don't you?
Link pulled himself out of her arms.
How could I not? What you said, I've been thinking about it ever since, wondering what you really meant to say.
I wanted to tell you.
Why did you hesitate then? And why are you hesitating now?
Link, I love you!
She pulled herself into a loving, passionate kiss with him. Their lips met, and Link let out a startled moan. His eyes were still wide with shock when his body began to melt into her sweet, tender kiss. But she wasn't going anywhere with it. Link touched Midna's face with one of his hands and took hold of one of her hands in the other. He closed his eyes and pushed himself into the kiss, forcing her mouth open with his lips. He infiltrated her mouth with his tongue, tracing around her lips. This time, it was Midna's turn to be surprised. She relaxed herself and let Link have his way for a little. After all, it felt good, but it was so strange. She was rather enjoying this human custom. Maybe she was enjoying it a little more than she should have. But her enjoyment was cut short. Link began to vanish.
Link, what's going on?
She began desperately grasping at him, but to no avail. Her hands only slipped through the hazy shadow that he had become. But then, something unusual happened. Her hand began to glow with the symbol of the Triforce. She gasped. Link let a single tear slip involuntarily down his face.
Zelda gave that to you, didn't she?
I can't lose you again! I can't bear it! Please don't go!
Midna, look at yourself. You're disappearing as well.
Link!
Midna, don't worry. We'll meet again, I promise. And you know me. I never break a promise.
I believe you.
And then the two of them were gone. Minna sat up with a shock, with both Ilya and Russell looking over her. Waves of memory came jutting back to her. She had seen Link, kissed him even. But was it really just a dream? No, it was too real, except for the place they were in. Everything else was entirely tangible, especially the kiss. She couldn't have imagined that. She didn't even know how humans had kissed before that. It couldn't have simply been an elaborate fantasy.
What happened?
A lot. We'll need to fill you in a little later. Now you need to rest.
We didn't know when you were going to come to. It's been nearly half an hour since you passed out.
Where's Link?
What do you mean? Thought I had already told you.
You're wrong. He's still alive. I can feel it. He's the only one who can put an end to this madness, and I'm going to find him.
Minna put a finger to her lips, struggling to remember the feeling of when she had kissed him. Further away from both the battle scene and Minna's refuge, Link found himself waking up. He was alive. He sat up with a start. He felt so grungy. His entire body was stinging. Sand and ash were covering his dried wounds. How long had he been laying there? He sputtered, realizing that he hadn't been breathing. How long had he remained breathless? He looked around him. He was in the desert and out of his cell. Flames were dying out all around him, and there were huge masses of burned and toppled wooden structures. What had happened while he had been out cold? The last thing he remembered was when he was attacked by the Redead. He had thought that monstrosity had killed him. But had he been wrong? Had the mysterious girl, whom he couldn't quite remember, have been wrong? Even Minna and Ilya, who had told Minna in the first place? Had he really been alive this whole time? But then a surge of emotions overcame him. He remembered everything about when he was unconscious. He remembered everything down to the very last detail. Everything, that is, except for who the little Twilight girl with blue eyes was. He didn't want to think about it any longer. He had to find Minna, at all costs. If his dream had anything to do with what was happening in real life, Zelda had given her power to Minna again, meaning Zelda was either in trouble or already dead, and Minna was in even greater danger. If Zelda had given her powers to Minna, then something drastic must have happened, and whatever that drastic something was, it was sure to go after whoever possessed the greatest power, and right now, that person happened to be his beloved. He had to save her. His heart raced and his body filled with the urge to protect the woman he now realized he loved.
I'm coming, Midna.
He grabbed a rather large piece of sturdy wood with a sharpened edge to use as a weapon, and he charged into the distance. This was it. He was going to end this madness once and for all.